What has been created by this half-century of massive corporate propaganda is what's called anti-politics. So anything that goes wrong, you blame the government. Well, okay, there's plenty to blame the government about. But the government is the one institution in which that people can change. It's the one institution you can affect by participation without institutional change, right? That's exactly why all the anger and fear is directed against the government. The government has a defect. It's potentially democratic. Corporations have no defect. They're pure tyrannies. So therefore you want to keep corporations invisible and focus all anger on the government. So you don't like something, your wages are going down, blame the government, not blame the guys in the Fortune 500, because you don't read the Fortune 500, thing. You just read what they tell you in the newspapers. So you don't read about the dazzling profits and the stupendous this and the wages going down and so on. All you know is that the bad government's doing something, so let's get mad at the government. It's, the militias are just, in this so-called patriot movement, is just one aspect. Notice, first of all, that their slogans are very much like what the whole propaganda system has been trying to ram into your heads for 50 years. The government is the enemy, and private power doesn't exist. Okay? Now, it's obvious why big corporations who are fighting the everlasting battle for the minds of men would want that to be the picture you have. If the government is your enemy, and you can, let's say, when 83% of the population think the economic system is inherently unfair, that's supposed to mean they're angry at the government. If you can take that view, then those who run the private institutions are quite well off. There's no threat of democracy. They can run things peacefully. The people are demoralized, and the normal methods of democratic participation to gain social ends are excluded. So it makes good sense for corporate propaganda, which means most of what we see and hear, makes a good sense for it to be trying to stress the message that the government is the enemy, and to de-stress, in fact, eliminate from sight the fact that private power exists. So government is the enemy, everybody else is in harmony. You can't do anything through the political system because it's your enemy. So therefore let us, who run the private system, let us run everything and don't bother us. Anti-politics is a very scary phenomenon. It can take the form of, that it is taking, forming what shouldn't be called militias, because remember, militias are things raised by states. These are just private armies. Forming private armies to defend the country, the people, against the UN forces being brought in the black helicopters by the Council on Foreign Relations to commit genocide, or whatever story you like. Or else it's, fight against Lucifer and Beast 66, who's doing this, that, and the other thing. And that's what, if you take a look across the country, that's what people are worried about and fighting against. Aliens, the devil, the UN forces, the Federal Reserve, everything except what's real, namely private tyranny, private corporate power, the guys who are listed in the Fortune 500. Well, that's an achievement. That's a propaganda achievement, and while the anger and the fear is real, and it's based on something, and you gotta sympathize with it because it is real. When your wages have dropped 25% roughly in, say, 15 years, and your wife has to work and your kids can't eat and so on and so forth, and you have no future and everything's rotten, you have a lot to be angry about. But people are not focused on what's doing it. That's the difference between the days in which there was a live, functioning labor movement that was organizing these people, exactly these people, to work together to change things.